Apprentice to the Masters, Part 2 by Peter Mount Shasta. Chapter 3. Meeting Pearl and Making a Vow. Section 2. Here's the part of the movie where the lumberjacks throw me into the street and cut off my long hair, I thought, knowing how hippies who crossed the line were sometimes treated in rural areas in those days. Driven by my ravenous hunger, however, I moved into the room and sat down on the only empty stool between two burly guys in flannel shirts and logger boots. I could feel them bristle as they turned their backs when I slid in between them. "What'll it be, honey?" the waitress said, walking up and standing in front of me with her pad and pencil, ready to take my order, diffusing the bomb of hostility that had been close to exploding. I felt a wave of gratitude towards her. Once everyone saw the waitress was going to serve me, they all went back to eating and talking. Is it really that hard for these people, who no doubt think of themselves as Christians, to show tolerance and compassion to a stranger? I wondered. Soon the fear in the pit of my stomach was gone, as I began devouring a large stack of buckwheat pancakes smothered in butter and maple syrup. As I was finishing breakfast, a radiant, blue-eyed fellow about my own age, whom I had not seen in the back of the restaurant, popped up beside me and thrust his hand into mine. "Hi, I'm Stephen," he said cheerfully. "I own the health food store around the corner. Come on over when you're done." Was this the one the master in Muir Woods told me to see, who would tell me what to do next? As soon as I paid my bill, I walked over to Stephen's store, where I found him busy filling plastic bags with sunflower seeds. He looked up as I walked in, and without a moment's hesitation looked me in the eye and said, "You're supposed to see Pearl." "Are you sure?" I asked. "Who's Pearl?" "Someone who knows." "Knows what?" "Knows what you want to know. Just call her. You'll find out." Following his instructions, I used his phone to call Pearl. "Come right up," a motherly voice spoke sweetly in my ear. A few minutes later, I was parked at the end of a dead-end road, outside what appeared to be a gingerbread house from the story of Hansel and Gretel, complete with a tall hedge and sheltering pine trees. Walking through the rose-entwined trellis in the hedge, I felt as though I were entering a temple. A flagstone path led to the door, which was round at the top, and standing before it, I let the iron knocker fall with a thud. The door was opened by a kindly woman in her 60s with piercing hazel eyes. She stood in the doorway, peering intently at me, like an owl. "Come in," she said. "I've been expecting you," and stepped aside for me to enter. "What do you mean you've been expecting me?" I asked after being shown to a chair opposite hers in the very cosy living room. "The master, Saint Germain, came to me this morning and said that he was sending someone to see me," she said in a matter-of-fact way, as though used to the daily appearance of this renowned master, who had reportedly been guiding the affairs of humanity for centuries, if not longer. "He did?" I swallowed hard. "Now, tell me who you are and what brought you here," she said, drawing her chair closer and beckoning me to pull forward, trying to put me at ease. I looked at the Reader's Digest on the table beside her and the tapestry of deer wandering in the forest on the wall, and wondered how, after all my experiences in India, sitting at the feet of dust-covered, often naked gurus, whose faces were smeared with ash, sandalwood paste, or vermilion, my wanderings in search of spiritual guidance had brought me to this ordinary-appearing woman in an ordinary house in a Northern California mill town. I told her of my experience in Muir Woods, and of the mysterious stranger who had appeared out of nowhere and taken me out of my body to the ecstatic realm of the Great Silence, and how I had decided to return to the earth to be of service, and how the stranger had transformed himself into a being wearing a white robe who told me to go to Mount Shasta. Without skipping a beat, this little grandmotherly lady, who looked like Yoda from Star Wars, asked, a mischievous twinkle in her eye, "And who do you suppose that was?" I looked up and saw a picture of Saint Germain on the wall and nodded toward it, still hardly daring to speak of my encounter with this legendary being only hours before. Yes, and he is very close by, and he is indicating that he wants to help you. What is he saying? I asked, astonished that Saint Germain was here, too, and showing such a sudden interest in me. Where has he been all my life, during all my ordeals, and why has he waited until now to appear? I wondered. Where was he in the past when I prayed to God and no one answered? I cannot tell you what he is saying, because I do not channel the words of the Masters, Pearl responded. The Masters do not allow their students to channel, except on the rarest occasions, because the Masters, who are God beings, can convey their wishes directly to you through your own heart. You may not hear the words they are saying with your ears or your mind, for your mind would only argue with them and seek to interfere. Instead, they convey information to your higher body, which you access intuitively as needed, later perceiving that information to come from yourself. I remembered now with great embarrassment how I had argued with Saint Germain the year before when he came to me on the mountain and told me to change my name, a name I swore to him I would never use. He had spoken directly to my mind, words which I had dismissed because I had not yet met the Master who was their source. Now, Pearl was telling me how I could contact that Master and experience his consciousness within my own field of awareness. To buy this and other books by Peter Mount Shasta, please go to iamteachings.com. Thank you for listening.